Hello, welcome to Politricking with myself, Tshidi Madia. This is season 5, episode 5. So 5 of 5 of a politics podcast brought to you by Eyewitness News. So last year, I think it was around July, the EFF turned 10 years old. I tried to get the EFF Student Command president, his name is Sihle Lonzi, to come join us in studio for a conversation about the EFFSC. What do they do? Do they matter? Are they of relevance? And I couldn't get the sit down then. But now I have him in studio with me, and it's perfect timing because if you've been paying attention with all the machinations, all the things that have been happening in the EFF, he laughs in the background. He's actually been a vocal element in defending, in rallying fighters, right? To defend their organization. He joins me, as I said, in studio now. Sihle, good morning. Welcome to Politricking.
Morning, Tshidi. Thank you for finally having us on the show.
Yeah, so I had wanted to speak to you when the EFF turned 10.
Yes.
And I wanted your thoughts about the organization.
Yeah.
But I think you've been in this position since 2022, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So let's speak about you at first and
Sure.
leading the EFFSC.
Yeah.
What's that been like?
Look, I think the most challenging thing about leading a student movement is how do you channel the vibrancy of the student movement in the campuses, in the universities, into the electoral growth and victory of the mother body. So the first non-negotiable principle of the EFF Students Command is to rally all young people behind the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime, as embedded in the founding manifesto. So I think from the get-go, when we got in with our leadership collective, that was our primary objective, to say, yes, we see the student command is vibrant. Yes, we see they are winning elections at a campus level, but there's been a gap. They've been unable to convert those victories into the electoral gains of the EFF. And I think what we did in May, with the long lines in the VDs that are near institutions of higher learning, was progress in terms of trying to get young people to be much more active in politics. So we've been engaged in that, of course, alongside fighting for students, fighting the corruption in the national funding scheme, fighting for registration through the Sizofuna Inkani campaign, and a variety of other issues that are affecting students. But at the center of it was to say, how do we get these young people to be much more active in the electoral politics of South Africa? We still have a long way to go, but it's something that we're looking at, and we have to put up that fight as we head to 2026.
So you think that were it not for the EFF's electoral decline and other factors, MK included,
Sure.
that the efforts that you're putting in at the universities would have actually yielded some fruit? Do you think that whatever results you have, you're the fourth largest party,
Sure.
that EFFSC has contributed by and large in getting you where you are?
Look, I think most certainly, both good and bad. Good because really the students came out. I mean, I think we saw the VDs, even when the IEC was delaying the voting processes, like a lot of the students there. I remember I went to a voting station next to UJ, and it was literally midnight, and the students were standing there and saying, we're not going anywhere. We had to call our leaders to try and persuade IEC to continue to open. So they came out, but of course we still have a long way to go because we didn't manage to get all of them. And the other problem that we noticed is that the difficulty with the student movement is that given the schedule of an ordinary student, it's difficult to reach out to the community. So there's a lot of young people who are either, they call them the NEET, not in education, not in employment and training. So they are in the communities, and we need to really find a strategy as the EFF to try and reach out to those young people who are sitting near Kasi in the rural areas, and not only focus our aims at the campus level. Yeah.
Does that suggest then that the EFFSC should change?
There must be a broadening of the scope. Of course, it's a conversation that all of us must have. It's not something we should
You're
want
going
to
conference.
rush.
It's the perfect time for that conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't
we're
it?
going to conference in December, so we probably need to discuss the broadening of the scope of the EFF Students Command. It could mean the establishment of another structure. It could mean just broadening the already existing brand to say, we understand that typically a student can't go to Kukuletu because they've got classes from 9, they get break at 12, then they've got classes again until 3 p.m. We can't expect them to be stationed in a township to try and mobilize youth. So there's a need to try and bridge that gap to say, how do we get the student command to reach out to young people even beyond the gates of institutions of higher learning.
So that's a conversation around young people.
Yes.
There is a similar conversation, I'm sure you know, around women in the EFF.
Yes, yeah.
Part of what has been difficult for the EFF was to draw the attention of women to the
Yes.
party. And a conversation about whether or not you have a women's unit,
Sure.
whether they mobilize themselves, was a conversation at the last People's Assembly. That was in 2019 and even before.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a time, as the EFF goes to conference, for those conversations to be on the table?
Yeah,
like
I
the
think-
discussion documents,
Yeah.
should they have conversations about these structures? And if they do, are you not worried that you'll simply be a carbon copy of what we see in the ANC?
I think, of course, that's what the leadership must be very mindful of. I think it's very easy to just want to redo what the ANC has already done. So we need to organize differently. But we can't ignore the fact that these are ways that our people have been organizing themselves, even across Africa, not just the ANC.
Yes.
So Ipsos told us to say that we're not attracting enough female voters. So I think part of what we must discuss in December, with all the other things that will be discussed there, is to say, how do we make the EFF a women-friendly organization? And I think the female leadership, the women leadership in the EFF need to start speaking about how to organize women in communities, how to organize women in the rural areas. It may be in the form of Women's Command. They can come up with something a little bit different and innovative, but there is a need. I think the science is there. Ipsos told us at the beginning of this year, I think in our when they came to Birchwood, in our elections workshop, to say we're not getting enough women voters in the EFF. So most certainly that discussion must be on the table.
Yeah, it's a consistent thing with the EFF and women. I'd make an argument as a woman journalist, as a woman who's always attacked by fighters online, is that maybe start there. Maybe the way you treat women
I
publicly
think
is something you must actually address. Like, I couldn't care less, but it is something that must be addressed.
Of course, it
The
should
language
be,
of vulgarity.
But Twitter is a very small.
what? It's a robust. Yeah, it's small.
Not, like,
it's
it
robust.
doesn't represent
you are
the
seen.
majority
You
of
are
the voters
seen.
of the members
But
of
they're
the
voters
EFF.
on Twitter. They're not.
And some of the people that insult you, we look at them and say, but these people are not EFF. And then you just
you don't
come with it.
reprimand them.
Fighters are
You know what's
insulting
interesting?
me.
Let me
and
actually
they are
tell
not
you
even
something very
members.
interesting,
Yeah.
actually. You know, when Floyd Shivambu resigned from EFF,
Sure.
there were two key things I took away from his statement. The one about how we must look at it as a deployment. I didn't.
Sure.
That's nonsensical.
Yeah.
The other one was about how he's hoping to not have insults. And I thought, wow, how interesting that he speaks about the culture of insults and attaches it to the EFF and hopes he's not insulted. Because it says something to me about what he had sanctioned while in the EFF, what he understands to be the language
No,
of
I
the
think he was
organization.
being
And hold on,
extremely
he wasn't alone.
opportunistic.
He wasn't alone. Mpo, who you follow, you're the fourth EFF SC president, the inaugural president of the EFF,
Sure.
also made comments about the language of insults as well in his statement. Does that not say something about
Look,
the culture?
I think they are very opportunistic because already they know the impression that is out there about fighters.
That
So
you are
they were
vulgar, you
trying
use
to
the language of
play into
intimidation.
that narrative, but really, it doesn't represent the majority of the members of the EFF.
I go to EFF events and I generally don't
and-
feel like that's what happens at
I mean,
events.
we're
I feel
treated
very
very
comfortable
well,
at events.
extremely well.
But I watch
We
you guys
give you your
online.
section, we give you
I
your food,
watch
your
you guys
drinks.
egg
ANC
on
puts you on the
trolls.
floor there at Nazareth. Tina will give you a nice
And the
a
ANC's
section
never
for
been
the
good
media.
there.
So it doesn't
ANC's
represent
not
all
good
of
with
us, yeah.
events. I can't take it away from the EFF. The EFF is very good with events. It's also because you're a small party. But anyway, let's speak
it's a
about
small party.
the fourth largest party, whatever. Let's speak about the contributions that the EFF-SC wants to make towards the third NPA. What is important for the EFF Student Command as far as the organization is concerned?
Look, I think for us, we've tried to, and this is why we didn't agree with the approach of Mpo, because Mpo wanted to drag us into a debate about names for leadership positions. And the stance we have taken at the EFF Students Command is that we want to discuss policy, we want to discuss the ideological trajectory of our movement. We're not really interested because we've got confidence in all leaders of the EFF. I think for us, what is important is when they come in, whoever it is that comes in, decided by the branches, where are they going to take the organization? So already, as I said, I think our first priority is how do we get the youth of South Africa to be much more involved in the electoral politics. I think the EFF has done very well in getting them to be interested. You know, they're watching the
captured the
parliament
imagination.
but
There's
now
no
they are
question
not
there.
registered to vote and they are not coming out to vote.
But the EFF has also failed to continue the momentum of the imagination it captured in young
Sure.
people and the likes.
So we have
It
to
ignited
convert
some
it.
spark.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's you spoke earlier about the issue of being unable to translate
Yeah.
what's happening on campuses
Yeah.
to actual electoral fortunes
Yeah.
at the polls. There is a conversation around reading the mood of the country. Quite often people feel the EFF is at a misstep with where the country's mood is. At some point, you and I will speak about GNU.
Sure.
It's not necessarily about government of national unity. It is about, I think, to some degree, believability. And that's something that the EFF must own, because the credibility of your messaging comes with what people observe about an organization, right? So
Sure.
you speak about particular policies and getting young people to move beyond capturing their imagination. Are you looking at it from a perspective of that gap is a self-induced crisis?
Sure.
It is the EFF's own doing that is unable to retain
Sure.
that support, the imagination, all of that, because there's no question you infused excitement and a spark in South African politics.
Look, I think the biggest irony around the question of EFF and mood is that too often people would like to brand the EFF as a populist organization. And now, one of the characteristics of a populist organization is that it goes with the wave. When the people say we don't want foreigners, they go with foreigners. When the people say we love foreigners, they go with foreigners. When people say chase this one away, they go with it. So what demonstrates that the EFF is not a populist organization is that it's willing to stand on its principles even if they are not popular or favorable at the time. So we've got our founding manifesto, we've got our 7 non-negotiable pillars. We're trying to persuade South Africans to buy into that vision. We're not trying to go like what Bogaten are doing. Whatever is popular on Twitter, he can change government policy based on how many likes and retweets that he's getting. So I do agree with you that we've got policies that South Africans are not really gripping into or understanding. Now, our responsibility is not to change the policy, but is to go out and try to explain it in a much better way, such that even the ordinary person, Elokshin, is able to understand this is what the EFF stands for. So it's ironic for me. They say EFF is populist, and they say EFF is not doing what South
But
Africans
that
want to
message
do.
is losing flavor. At some point, it captured the imagination, and you could see that in the electoral rise of the EFF. The decline says, actually, the message that you've been using all along is failing somewhere. You go back to the drawing board. What needs to be done?
Look, the message is going to remain. I think
Okay.
what we then need to do is how do we communicate this message much better, such that even an ordinary person can. Because there are a lot of misconstrued misconceptions, and the media as well plays into this thing. Because the media also tries to paint the EFF in a particular picture,
No,
even
you
if
do that
that
on your
doesn't.
own.
Don't be defensive. I'm
not
saying
being
media,
defensive.
not CD.
We're not like Kumbaya is also not how we approach anything.
Yeah.
We also have very differing views about
Sure.
an approach to political parties,
Yeah.
to political leaders.
Yeah.
Praveen Gordhan came out, just passed on.
Yeah.
There was a scathing statement from the EFF.
Yeah.
Some people are aligned with that view. Others aren't,
Yeah.
and it's fine. We are in a democracy.
Yeah.
People are allowed to have a myriad of views. Nobody cares. Well,
Yeah.
I couldn't be bothered. So please don't like you don't want to be painted in a particular way. Please don't paint
Don't
us
paint
with
the
one
media.
single brush. Like
Oh,
that's not how
okay.
it functions. I know it makes you guys feel easier
Some
and
parts of the
happier.
media.
It's not how we function. But let's go back
Sure.
to the NPA and the contribution. So you are worried about broadening the scope as far as young people are concerned, in terms of organizational well-being and what the EFF needs to do to undo 2024 election results.
Look, we've got a big problem of EFF members and leaders that lie to the organization. I think that's the other honest discussion we must have in the NPA. Because the EFF Road to Victory manual was very clear in terms of what must happen, in terms of who must speak to. Give a practical example. If the EFF gives me a responsibility and says, Sihle, go to a ward in the KZN and speak to 100 people and try and persuade these people to vote for the EFF and come back and give us a report. We've got a problem of people who go there, claim to have spoken to the 100 people, come back to us, give us names that don't exist, and then give us a belief that indeed there is presence of the organization. And then we become comfortable because these are the reports that we're getting. And then we're not able to go in. So we need a lot of honesty when it comes to reporting. I think that's a big problem that we're experiencing organizationally. And I think it was reflected even in the outcomes. Leaders and members of the EFF ought to be honest and alert our leaders early that, look, I went there to Nkandla and I only found 3 people that resonate with us. So that we're able to come in and reinforce. So part of the issue we had with our RETFs, PETFs, is people that lie to the organization. So we need to have a discussion about that when we speak about organizational renewal.
Are the people who've been lying to the organization about the health and well-being of the organization and communities still in the organization? Or do you point a finger at the likes of Floyd who've left the organization?
Yeah, others have left, others will follow. Floyd included. I mean, he was deployed to KZN, and KZN performed dismally.
But we told you at your manifesto that the manifesto was a flop. And you said we are lying. In fact, you attacked media when media was making a key observation of looking at a manifesto launch of an EFF that wasn't on par, it was subpar. I've covered
the manifesto,
all the events, and it wasn't what it ought to be.
The manifesto was not a flop.
Was that not a signal of what's to come?
It did give a signal, but it wasn't a flop. Remember what we tried to do in our manifesto, and I think the other parties were not brave enough to do that, is to say we don't want any visitors from outside. Because for us, we needed to see. So we were conducting an internal study to say, what is our strength in the province of KZN?
Looking at a stadium, a journalist who's covered EFF from its inception looks at the stadium and goes, this is not their standard.
But typically
Something
we
is
invite
wrong.
everyone.
I say it's a
FNB, we
flop.
invited
I say it's a
all
flop.
provinces.
Wait, I say it's a flop. And what do EFF members do? They attack the media once again.
No, don't
Yet
attack.
the observation
we
was clear.
We clarify. We say, Tshidi, we only have KZN people here.
You attacking,
we didn't call Gauteng.
wrong.
We didn't call
And the election
Mpumalanga.
results showed that we were correct and you were wrong.
No, the election results demonstrated to us that the people who had sent to KZN in the form of the former deputy president did not do the work that was needed to be done. In fact, they were lying to us each time when they came to our meetings and said, we have got party agents here, we have got VD agents here. It was not true. It was not reporting the truth.
Who must
and
bear
that
the
was
responsibility?
reflected.
Because you've got Marshall Zamini, who's your Secretary General. The reports go to his office. He has a responsibility to make sure that, as far as the organization is concerned, it is run in a particular manner. These reports, these lies, should be checked by that office.
Look, all
should
of
he
us,
not bear responsibility?
All of us must obviously bear
I
the
see. So
responsibility.
somebody must
at
be
some
held
point.
accountable.
All of us must be
It
held
can't be a
accountable.
Secretary General.
All of us, including the officials, including the members of the CCT, including all members of the CETF, to say at some point we must have a system that is able to verify. But we also need to hold those we send to deployment accountable, to say you were sent to this province under the pretext that you'll be able to bring it to the EFF, and you failed to bring this province to the EFF. In fact, you told us that we're represented in all the voting districts in the KZN, and we got to learn that we're not.
And the Secretary General who gets those reports, who oversees that entire process, is not the person who gets held accountable.
All of us are held accountable, including myself, including the president of the EFF, including... But
so you
we
do what the
must
ANC
be
does,
able to
collective
do-
responsibility.
Of course, it's in our constitution. Collective leadership, collective accountability, collective responsibility.
You see why they say you're just another version of the ANC?
We are not a version of the ANC. What you are running away from? Because I see where you are trying to take
No,
me.
I'm not trying to take you.
All
I'm
of
asking
us
a simple
take-
question.
That's why I said this must be discussed in the NPA. So
Okay.
no one must be paged. We must say, how as an organization do we deal with the culture of reporting? And how do we make sure that we get authentic reports? But also out of that, how do we ensure that we have got systems that are able to verify these reports quickly as they come, so that where we've got problems, we're able to zoom in and fix them early before they give us problems in the future.
Sure. Talk to me about the relationship the EFF-SC has with the EFF itself. I want to jog you back to 2019.
Sure.
I think Julius Malema called the EFF-SC useless. Those are the words
I
he used.
remember, yeah.
One would make a similar argument that when it comes to you, you were somebody that they didn't rate. Your usefulness comes with Floyd's departure. You've been able to reposition yourself in the organization.
But
quite
Tshidi are being
recently. Am I lying?
ahistoric. It's not true.
Okay.
So when we come in, the first thing we do is to launch a very aggressive voter registration campaign.
In
Immediately when
2022.
you come in 2022, to try and register as many students as possible. And I think that work, because election work doesn't start a month before election, doesn't start a day before
No.
elections.
As it stands,
It
you should be
starts
working towards
much-
2026 already.
Absolutely. So we did that, and I think the organization was very happy with that work, because part of the comments that the president made in 2019 is that he does not feel the impact of the EFF-SC in the growth of the EFF. But secondly, the EFFSC was unable to run its own programs, have a life of its own.
I
And I think
remember.
we've been able to demonstrate that. We call leadership less. We run our own programs. If you look at what has been happening in campuses, even from last year, typically the EFFSC calls EFF leaders to come address in campuses. You'll find Dr. Ndlozi speaking in KZN, speaking in Eastern Cape, speaking there. But if you see now, over the past year or so, we've been sending leaders of the EFF Student Command. Yes, we'll reinforce here and there, but in the main, it's us who are speaking to our constituencies because we're trying to resolve that problem to say, yes, there's relative autonomy, but let's have an image and programs of our own, a life of our own.
How are you managing I don't want to call them rumblings, but
Sure.
there's unhappiness on some level in the EFFSC in relation to the organization. It's young people who watch literally from afar. Busisiwe Mkhwebane, who is seen as a reject from the ANC, being rewarded in the EFF. Mzwanele Manyi, again, seen as a reject in the ANC and moved on to ATM. It didn't yield him anything, get rewarded with a parliamentary position. Carl Niehaus, an RET rejected by the ANC, in fact expelled by the ANC, being rewarded with a seat in parliament by the EFF. How do you as an EFFSC manage those kind of issues with young people? How do you explain decisions made by the mother body? Because there's no way young people who are expected to work hard in communities can be satisfied sitting, watching people come in and being literally positioned right at the top.
Look, we've got a different type of an activist in the EFFSC.
I want you to be honest.
I'll be completely honest with you.
And I'm saying I want you to be honest because I know what I know.
No, I'll come to that. But I must make this point to say, we're not like the ANC Youth League where you find them calling a press conference to discuss who must become an MEC. So yes, the concerns are there, but they are not central to the discussion. But where we've got suspicion, Tshidi, is a situation where the former deputy president of the EFF invites people to join the EFF. These people sit in highly confidential meetings of the EFF. We plan, we strategize our election strategy, our election objectives, through Mzobe and even Bomani. And then after inviting these people leave the EFF to join the MKP, and then they invite him to join the MK. So as young people, we are very suspicious to say, what was the agenda of these people to begin with? There's no way I can call you to join my organization. You listen to my strategy before, on the eve of the election. Then you leave my organization. Then I come and join your organization. So that is our concern to say, have we, through our outright flexibility in terms of who joins and participates, have we been too open? And that has allowed for a lot of infiltration. So we don't discuss it at the level of positions, but we discuss it at the level of saying, before we can entrust someone to join our meetings, to go to our deployment, there ought to be some period, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year, whether it's 2 years. And I think it's reflected in the Constitution to say, let's vet this person that indeed, are we dealing with a fighter here or are we dealing with an infiltration in our movement? So at the policy level, most certainly, we do have a big problem with someone who joined yesterday and immediately they're elevated to form part of important organizational meetings.
What else are young people in the EFFSC worried about that you would need to carry those messages to the mother body and to the floor when you gather at Nasrec in December?
Look, the other thing, biggest concern that really young people are worried about is that the nature of a student is that it's a transitionary period, maximum 3-4 years. And then what the EFF has been unable to do. So we've got a lot of very smart, very intelligent young people who are members of the EFF Student Command. Maybe they become lawyers, doctors, engineers. They go to the workplace and they are unable to find a space to continue with their activism. Why? Because they are too old for the EFF Students Command, but at the same time, they are too young for the EFF because EFF leaders also want to protect their space. So we've just got a big flock of young people who are graduating every year and they are not finding a space to continue with their activism. So maybe that's where that discussion about broadening the scope must come in. So I think that's at the center of what really young people are worried about in the EFFSC.
There's never been a threat of a revolt?
No, not really. I think we've managed to run a very tight and close ship, as we say. There's no threat of revolt. Yes, there are members of people who would want to push us in this direction or that direction in the form of the likes of Bompo, who wants to have a discussion about leadership only to leave us a few weeks later. But in the main, I think a lot of the young people in the EFF are concerned about the life and the longevity of the EFF. They want the EFF to continue. You see, the other thing about young people in the EFF, Tshidi, is that we've never been part of any other organization. So we're not like our leaders. Like, we don't come from ANC.
You don't have the historical
We
baggage.
don't come
Yeah,
from ANC.
yeah.
Like, we don't even know like how ANC holds its meetings. So we've got no emotional attachment to any other organization other than the EFF. So the survival of the EFF for us really is extremely personal. And that's why we've come very hard over the past weeks and months to defend and protect our movement.
Your job as the EFF-SC president, specifically you, Sihle, I often find that I often ask myself about whether or not there's a conflict, because you also sit in the Central Command
Sure.
by virtue of your position. And there's a question mark about whether or not that gets in the way of your ability to fully defend and to push forward the issues of young people, that it's not clouded by how the EFF Central Command functions, where there is, what is that word? Democratic centralism.
Sure.
That it doesn't get in your way.
Yeah.
Do you often find that there is a conflict? Do you find that
Look,
maybe...
I think you'll know. We've gotten into a lot of trouble with the leadership, where we've disagreed on key questions.
About a metric,
and a variety of other issues. So in our meetings, actually, we debate a lot of these issues, especially issues that deal with support for the EFF-SC, being absorbed into the structures of the EFF, being able to participate more rigorously. So we're not just lame ducks in the meetings. We get into trouble a lot. We get even chased out. We come back. We fight. So there's a lot. We fight for young people in the EFF. In fact, our presence there is important because it's able to give the leadership a moment to reflect, even if they may disagree with what we're saying. But we know once you say it, when they get home or on their way home, they'll start thinking about it. And then a few months later, you hear the leadership repeating what you had said in the meeting. And you're like, no.
It landed.
Listening. Yeah.
Why do you think some in the EFF-SC feel that you don't, actually, that you're not in the right position to defend the EFF-SC and to put forward their frustrations, that you being in the Central Command team actually makes you the lame duck that you say you're not?
Look, it's the nature of a young person to always want to push beyond the boundaries. So, and that's what a young person must always do. Like, you must always get into trouble. You must always make errors. I think being young gives us that license. So even if I didn't sit in the Central Command, I think there'd be people who say, I think we should do more. Let's march to HQ. Let's do this. Let's do that. And that's good. We don't suppress those views. But of course, we must be able to regulate them correctly. What people don't quite understand about democratic centralism is that there's a difference between democratic centralism and centralism. So democratic centralism means before we bring the centralism, there must be a diversity of the views. And then once we've discussed and labored on it, when we take a decision, there must be a unity of action. So it's there. Of course, young people will always want to push boundaries, and they must, because they must even hold us accountable.
That's what
they
being
must
young is about.
agitate us so that we can be able to agitate our leaders.
There's a view that you put forward quite recently, and I really strongly felt that it was the right view. You spoke about the relationship between the EFF and the MK party, the MKP. You were like, you should not be working with them in the so-called progressive caucus. I've never seen that thing as a progressive caucus in parliament from when it was first birthed, because all you need to do is look at the MKP's policy positions to realize that there's nothing progressive really about the MKP. It postures left. It actually isn't. And I could never understand why people weren't seeing that. You've come out saying, actually, again, like I said, the EFF has no business having a relationship with the MKP. Are you furthering that view within the organization, or are you just making public pronouncements? Where are you in trying to get that relationship to be severed?
Look, it's an argument we're going to make, even leading up to the NPA, to say that we don't have an issue to come together with the MKP on issue base. Because the argument I made when I was speaking in the University of Zululand is to say that we don't agree on all the policies of the MK. In fact, some of their policies are extremely
You
regressive.
can't agree
I
with
mean,
sending girls to exile.
Imagine,
You
but
can't agree.
if someone is pregnant and they're a teenager, we must round up all the
No, it's
pregnant
ridiculous.
teenagers and send them to Robben Island. So we don't agree with that. We don't agree with their anti-constitutionalism stance. We don't agree with their wanting to take us back to a feudalist state where we are ruled by traditional leaders and all of that.
Goodness.
So they can come. I mean, we do this with the ANC as well. When the ANC comes to parliament and says we want to expropriate land without compensation, we vote with them. When they come to parliament and say we want to bring in a progressive bill in basic education, we vote with them. So we can have that relationship with MK to say,
Okay.
on issue base, where we agree, we'll vote with you. But this wholesale alliance that we have, we completely disagree. There's nothing progressive about the so-called progressive caucus. And they're poaching our members and our leaders, these people. Like, we can't be here discussing how do we fight GNU, but we must still be worried that when now you're looking over the fence to see which Sihle can I take there in the EFF. So they are engaged in a project to infiltrate and destroy the EFF. I know the leadership may not be happy with this view, but like I said, we're young, we're propagating these views, they may disagree with us, they'll correct us in the future. But as youth of the EFF, we don't see the progress in our in a wholesale alliance with the MK. MK can come to us in parliament and will agree on certain issues, but it must not be wholesale. We don't align with them on a variety of matters.
Some have a theory that they will see a coming together of the MKP and the EFF. Where would you stand in that?
In the form of what? A political party?
An alliance of sorts.
It will never happen.
And the ANC?
It won't happen. The EFF is going to exist and it's going to be a political party that will outlive many of these other organizations. Remember,
I can't agree with that view.
Sustaining an organization for 10 years is not easy.
I know that.
I think COPE really showed us.
We all know that.
Achang showed us.
We all know that, but I think a
and
government
many
in
other
waiting,
movements.
the EFF can no longer be.
The EFF,
I think the EFF's regression in 2024 is its own doing. But an ability to reflect on the way forward, to pause and reflect, an inability rather, is what will determine what happens next. I don't know from where I'm sitting if the fighters are pausing to reflect. Do you feel you are?
We're most certainly reflecting, and we're going to reflect in the NPA. Look, even if the future of South Africa is coalition governments, which is what is happening in Germany and many
Absolutely,
other
that is the future,
countries in the West,
Power sharing.
we will come in where it makes sense. Of course, there are certain political organizations that we'll never align with, like the DA, the VF Plus, because of their very racist policies. So we
But you
foresee
worked
the
with them.
collapse.
You must always be reminded of these things.
This GNU is going
You
to
worked
collapse.
with them from 2016.
But
You
we-
constantly
guys, we
asking to
didn't
be
work- we
reminded.
didn't work with the
You had a
DA.
working relationship with the DA.
This is what we did in 2016.
You had a working relationship.
And you see
I was
the-
there in Stratla when Julius made that announcement. You worked with them.
No. You see,
You had a
the
working. It wasn't a
decline.
coalition. It was a working
You see
relationship.
the other mistake that South Africans are making, and the guys in the media space and
Please tell us.
the researchers. The decline of the ANC in May can't only be attributed to MK. That would be completely unscientific. The decline of the ANC must be attributed to a variety of factors. Number one,
Yes.
removing
Why
them
are you
from
giving me
munis-
ANC assessment when we're speaking about
removing them
EFF?
from the. I want to show
Hold
you that
on.
we didn't work with the DA. Removing them from the municipal pairs. We know how the ANC campaigns. It uses money of government to reinforce its campaigns. At some point in May, we didn't see ANC posters. At some point, they couldn't pay.
Yeah,
for
they
their
had
media
issued
pay.
posters. The
They
leaked
don't
audio
have
told
money.
us.
So
Yeah.
we had to unplug them. And how we unplugged them in 2016 was to vote with these guys, not to vote with them, to vote
To
for
vote
them.
with
To vote
them.
for
I
them.
love that.
To vote for them.
To vote
enter
with them.
in municipalities.
And
So
then
we
you've
removed these
continued to
ones.
vote with them because Tanya Campbell, Mayor of Ekurhuleni, when she was meant to be removed, was voted back in with the aid
Yeah.
of what? The EFF. Freedom Front Plus. And I love it. The other day, Uba King from Ramobodu, from
Tshwane,
Tshwane,
yeah.
tried to make an argument that, and it wasn't even me, I was actually quoting TK Ngleza, the secretary of the NC in Gauteng, about the relationship between the EFF and Freedom Front Plus in Northern Cape. And Uba King said it's a lie. And you know who corrected Uba King? Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, Julius Malema himself, saying, yes, we did. So
No,
those
but
arguments don't hold water for me.
He didn't say we.
He said, yes, we did.
He said we voted. He said we voted them
but
in.
we did.
We were not in an alliance with
But
them.
you were. I didn't say you're an alliance. I said you worked with them.
This thing of politics
to vote for them is to work with them. Don't come here with semantics.
Strategy and tactics. Now, us and the ANC.
The point that we're making, you and I, and we're making the same point. You worked with them. You helped them. The very parties you say you'll never work with.
They helped us to remove the ANC. They helped us to remove the ANC.
You helped each other,
in government. Remember, us and
you
the
helped
ANC.
Each other. The very same ANC
the same
that you're in bed with now in Ekurhuleni, in Johannesburg, you're planning to get back into bed with in Tshwane. That ANC.
Us and the ANC.
Emma, hold on. That ANC, is that what we're talking about?
Yes, that ANC.
So the DNFF Plus helped you say, in dealing with the ANC, the very same
to
ANC
remove the ANC from the purse of government.
That you're in bed with currently in some of the metros.
We're not in bed with them.
You're with them. You're power showing with them.
We're not
you're
in
showing
bed
MMC post with them, so you're in bed.
No, we're not
it's
in bed
okay.
with them. You know, to be in bed with someone is for there to be a contract, like how Mbalula did with Helen, signing a contract that it didn't read. Is to go for our president to go and say, I signed here. We're in a coalition with these guys.
Okay, see,
there's not a single document that puts us there with the DA, with the ANC, or even the VF Plus.
But you just said that they helped you. You helped them. You're helping the ANC. You're in bed with them.
We're engaged in a strategy to remove the ANC from public purse.
The same ANC that you're with in Ekurhuleni, in Johannesburg, that you're going to work with in Tshwane.
We're putting ourselves in government to demonstrate,
how do you explain to your supporters,
to the people.
How do you explain to your supporters that you are actually serving alongside Dada Morero,
Remember,
alongside Doctor?
To show that we're a reflective organization, since you asked about it earlier on, what our research showed us is that part of the reason why we're not making certain inroads in certain communities is because our communities don't have an idea of what a government of the EFF
that
looks
was what was the point in 2016.
That's what we're engaged in now. To say they must see us in government. They must see us to say when the EFF leads,
we're running out of time, so I don't want to have a back and forth.
Yeah.
Let me help you with that very quickly. The issue of being a government in waiting and saying you're waiting to show an example of what you can do in governance was an argument you used as far back as 2016 and even beyond.
Sure.
You were given those opportunities. From 2021's local government elections, changed the picture. You found yourselves co-governing. And you know what? 2024 elections happened with you having occupied positions. You had long been finance MMC. So that actually doesn't hold water any longer. You were seen in governance. And there were question marks about your leadership in governance. I even asked Julius Malema one day saying, what sort of an EFF is ready for governance when you shrug the media because it's a party position, but you forget that when you're holding public office, you are not representing EFF, you represent the people.
To speak
After
to
I raised it at a media briefing with Julius Malema.
Even before
only
you raised it.
Only then did he start going. So that says to me that you have leaders who can't think for themselves because they're scared of what the commander-in-chief will say.
No, it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not
I'm not
true.
asking, I'm telling you.
Even before you had engaged with the
No,
president.
it's not
Remember,
true.
what council sits
Julius
weekly.
Malema then that day, to me, said, no, he must go to ENC. And guess what happened afterwards? Mthweni Chwaku started finding out where Hyde Park was. So no, that argument actually doesn't hold water. I want to move on because...
But it's dangerous to create an impression that the policy direction of the EFF is determined only by the commander-in-chief. That was the position of the EFF in our meetings, to say, guys, if you're in government, as a government official, speak to everyone. But us, as the EFF, the ENCA long divorced us. But if
so
you are
isn't
a
the
mayor,
question about how you're managing messaging then? Because you say it's dangerous to say to view it like Julius Malema determines policy. Yeah. But there's a reason why that's the observation.
You guys are the ones
with the propaganda. And then the change following that leads to that. So there's a problem in understanding your own policies and how you implement them, right? And the messaging. How at every event, the key speaker is, and it's something that's been raised with you, I know for a fact, by young people. The fact that at most events, the key speaker is just the commander-in-chief of the organization.
Cyril speaks only.
That's not true.
But you guys are unfair on the EFF. You know, their organization, MK comes out and says, we're not going to have a conference until 2020. But John Steenhuisen is not a leader of the DA. We all know that Helen Zille is leading the DA.
But then Helen lets John speak. That's the point that I'm making.
I haven't seen when last did John Steenhuisen speak. John He's not leading the DA, that guy. He's a
I'm going to
puppy
make
of
my point, no
Helen
matter
Zille.
what you do to try and distract
So
me.
the point I'm trying to make is that you guys are so unfair on the EFF. The EFF hosts
You're not
elective
about
conferences.
Nobody's unfair to you.
Action SA appoints their leaders.
And that's raised.
PA
The lack of
appoints.
democracy.
There's no democracy in these
SA
organizations.
has been raised. Herman Mashaba was told, when are you having an elective conference?
He's not going to have it.
MKP is asked,
They are
when
not going
are
to
you
have
having
it.
an actual process?
They're
Those
not going
things
to have
are
it.
ours.
MKP is not going to have a conference.
But we are asking those questions.
I can tell you now they won't have it.
That's for them and for us to continue.
It's a royal
asking.
family, that thing.
Anyway, so this is such a distraction. It's so hard to talk to you. I am running out of time. Your sense of these relationships that the EFF has in the metros, these working relationships with the NC, are you satisfied? There was a time where your leader threatened to pull MMCs from positions. This following Dunga's firing. Dunga's never been reinstated as the finance MMC in Ekurhuleni. Your thoughts?
You see, it builds on the point that I was making. The ANC has been very uncomfortable with us being in government because look at the situation of Ekurhuleni. There's a township there in Ekurhuleni that was not getting service delivery. A basic thing like cleaning. The ANC MMC, the EFF MMCs come in. They start to do visible service delivery. They go and visit communities. The ANC leadership becomes uncomfortable. There's even, I don't know if it was a press statement of the former mayor of Ekurhuleni, Zwanele Masina, where he says, these guys are outperforming us because we're contesting the same constituency. So the ANC has made it very difficult for us to
contest.
No,
that's not true, actually. That's not what happened.
He said
there was
it.
a statement from a current leader of the
current
ANC
leader, yeah.
who said, this doesn't serve us to be in this coalition.
Exactly. Why?
This working agreement is bad for us because you're fishing in the same pond.
We
That's
are
what he's speaking
outperforming
about.
them.
I was reporting about trucks that you said were stolen, which were there. So I can't agree. I watch Ekurhuleni quite
why are this? Why, if indeed we're in this lovey-dovey friendly relationship with the ANC, why does the ANC have a problem with us being in government? We're outperforming them. And that's the only thing that will threaten these municipalities.
So you are the threat.
We're outperforming
What
them.
does that then mean? I'm going to look out for 2026. Does that mean that the EFF will do better in 2026?
Oh, absolutely. Even this narrative of a regress, guys, this thing of a graph, the graph has not pointed in the opposite direction. It's moving like this.
They say you're plateauing.
If we were you can make that argument. So to say that the EFF is declining is not true. We'll actually know scientifically, we'll only know in 2026 if the EFF is declining.
You think you're
the
doing
graph
enough
is like
to
this
keep the
now.
graph from declining? The downward trajectory, you think you're doing enough as it stands?
You know what?
The way the organization is continuing at the moment,
scientific
is
terms,
it enough?
in scientific terms, actually, the EFF is growing at a regressive rate. If we were to actually give it scientifically,
At a regressive rate.
we'll only know in 2026 if the EFF declines. For now, scientifically speaking, the EFF is growing.
Why was it important for you to be a voice that defends the organization as loudly as you have been recently?
Look, and that's, like I said, young people must be like that. We felt that as youth, maybe our leaders, because of the relationship they had with the people who are leaving the EFF, it was very difficult. I know even for president, it's not easy for him to come out strongly against the former deputy president. So we thought, no, because we have to come out and defend our organization. And if you remember, we were the first ones to come out. Not only me, by the way, because people like to make it look like it's me. If you check the videos, it started coming like organically on the ground, random people, random students, random leaders of the EFF Student Command saying, no, man, this Floyd must go away.
You call him VBS Floyd, don't you?
Yeah, it's VBS Floyd.
Why is Julius Malema not VBS
but
Malema?
The president was cleared by Parliament, guys. Cleared by the Ethics
That
Committee of
Matodzi
Parliament.
affidavit places both of them there.
Cleared by
and Julius Malema, in his own words, the VBS card, Kameka's card, follows him around everywhere because his cousin's got the card. So he himself, hold on, Malema himself actually places himself in the middle of that.
He's never agreed to that. You guys went to interview
He
him.
said that. He said the
6, 7 of
Kameka
you
card follows
against
him
him.
everywhere.
You even opened his wallet
He
looking
says
for that
you've never
card.
seen it.
You
When did
didn't
you see
find
videos
it.
of me doing that?
Did you find the card?
Did you see me actually opening his wallet?
No, there's a video that is
Please
there.
find me the video.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. I'll wait for the video.
Did you see
Please
the
find me
card?
the video. I'll wait for the video. Then the other question that I'm going to ask you, until you show me the video, I can't speak to that. Because I know there's no such, because there's no video.
I'll send it to you.
And then the other question I need to ask you from there is, you want to remove Julius Malema from VBS. What does that say to people? Because you're defending.
We're not
EFF's
removing
leaders.
him. He's not there.
Hold on. You
Yeah.
were defending even Floyd Shivambuni who's in the EFF from VBS. Suddenly it's VBS Floyd.
No, I never defended. We said the position of the EFF on VBS, if we were to track and look at it, we have never actually defended. We said, bring the evidence and EFF leaders must go and stand the test either in court, in parliament. The former deputy president of the EFF went to parliament. They found him guilty for, I think, 180,000 that he didn't declare, whatever. We've never said, no. We've been very open. We even invited media to say, guys, okay, come
We're
and
still waiting to
scrutinize
see your
us.
books. I asked to see the books. I'm still waiting. So
you
please
haven't
find me
received
the
them.
video of me getting the books to EFF along with the wallet.
You haven't
There's a lot
received
of
our
things you
books.
don't have.
They're
Sihle, you don't
there
have.
with the IEC.
I'm almost done. I do
Yeah.
know that you've come out quite publicly to endorse Malema for a third term. That scares some people that a president should not hold a position for so long. But I think there are some in the EFF that I've spoken to who strongly feel the EFF still needs Malema at the helm. Who should be second in command?
No, the delegates of the EFF must
The
decide.
EFFSC doesn't have an opinion on this one.
We are going there. We're going to decide there in the NPA. We must not. We were avoiding what Mpho tried to do to us.
Mpho wanted to move
Mpho
Mbiseni
wanted
forward.
to derail our discussion. At the center of our worries is the policy direction of our organization. But we'll discuss leadership in our conference. You are invited, Tshidi. You'll come. And we're going to see who I'll be lifting my hand for in the NPA.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will be on the lookout for that. I won't. But I definitely will pitch. Thank you so much, Sihle. Good luck with the SRC
Thank you.
elections. We'll see what happens with the EFF post 3rd NPA. People think it'll be a bloodbath after 3rd NPA, that the party will pretty much cannibalize itself.
Never.
Your thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
And I'll call you if it's happening, and
should-
you'll come answer to that.
People should celebrate the fact that this organization is the only organization outside of the ANC that has been able to continuously hold elective conferences. And they've been contested. I mean, the former
What do you
deputy
mean?
president was... Which
DA
other...
holds elective conferences.
those things that are held on Zoom, we can't even
IFP
verify.
holds conferences.
We can't even verify if people are voting there. They
Yeah,
hold
why-
a conference
John was
on
elected
Zoom.
last year in Midrand. in the
John was
real
installed
one, in
by Helen
2023.
Zille. Was
But
installed.
Oksala, he held a conference.
So
IFP holds conferences. What are you talking about? And IFP's also been around much longer than EFF.
IFP is
So was elected.
is a traditionalist, rural.
No, I'm not asking about the character of the
ethnic-centered
organization. What I'm
party,
saying is
yeah.
they do. You said you guys are the only ones who hold elections, elective conference. I'm like, that's not true. I get you talking about scientific things earlier. It's scientifically not true.
The point I'm making is that this image which is being created about the EFF, there's no data to support it. People say the EFF is a dictatorship, we prove against it. People say
Where
the
did you
EFF,
prove
there's no
against it?
democracy,
Where?
we prove against it.
Where? When? How?
How is the EFF a dictatorship? You think a dictator will allow some small boy of student command to come speak with media when he's not around? He wouldn't do that. I'm here because
currently serving a purpose, of course.
we're in a free democratic organization.
No comment.
We're
okay?
disagreeing with the Progressive Caucus. There's no
Okay.
way we'd be able to do that if we were in a dictatorship.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so you think there'll be stability post 3rd NPA?
Absolutely. In fact, the NPA, I see the discussion about names and who must lead, but the NPA must really reflect on the organizational redesign. So questions must come about there about certain structures we have in our movement. Are they still working for us? Is the way in which we're organizing ourselves, is it working, or we need to rethink them? So I think that is the biggest, and perhaps May was important for the EFF, because sometimes it's not easy to reflect when the graph is pointing upwards, because you're under the impression that whatever it is that you're doing is correct because the people are happy. So perhaps that May was important for us to then take a step back, because we're moving fast. And even you guys, you've got extremely high standards for the EFF. If it was up to you, we were supposed to enter in 2014, 2016 already, we've got 50% in government. So we're going to reflect, and May has given us that opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Only time will tell, actually. Thank you so much. That's Sihle Lonzi, EFF Student Command
Thank you.
President, chatting to us. I think another thing you need to note, of course, and I mentioned it earlier, former Minister Praveen Gordhan passed on last week. I think we had a chat with him just a few months ago, and I think possibly one of his last conversations, reflecting, of course, on his time in government. He passed away at the age of 75. Thank you for tuning in.